Hello, good evening, and welcome to Galactic Terrors, where we bring you scary stories from the known universe. I'm Jim Chambers, and with me tonight is...
I'm Carol Geisander. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
It's great to see you. Those of you who are joining us again, thank you for coming back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, we're excited to have you here with Galactic Terrors. We are hosted by the New York chapter of the Horror Writers Association, and we put on a session of readings every second Thursday of the month here on the Galactic Terrors YouTube channel. So please make sure to do all those like and subscribe things that everyone on YouTube says is good for YouTube, and sign up for our newsletter. We'll provide that information a little later. But we have a great lineup of readers here for you tonight.
Mm-hmm. We've got three great readers tonight. We have Marc L. Abbott, Robert P. Ottone, and Michelle Renee Lane. But I'm really sorry to say April Gray was going to be our fourth reader, and she's had a series of technical issues and had to bow out at the last minute. But we really look forward to having her back on again because she's a terrific reader with great stories. So we'll see her again soon, right, Jim?
Absolutely. Yes, April's, it's always a pleasure to hear April read, and we definitely want to get her back on as soon as we can, hopefully later this summer.
Yeah, that sounds terrific. Yeah. Summer, can you believe it's summer already? Is it hot by you?
Yeah, I don't have any choice but to believe it, because it was in the 90s and the high 80s lately out here.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure for people, my favorite.
What's that?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and we used to hope and pray that summer would fall on a weekend up there. You know, I don't do real well with the heat, so yay for air conditioning, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm sure the West Coasters on our listening to us tonight are making fun of us since their weather's warm all the time. But
yes, that's quite true.
Yeah.
That's quite true. Well, summer is actually a great time for summer scares. That's the HWA program that's going on now. Yes, so.
Yeah, it's a great library program coordinated by Becky Spratford and Conrad Stump. And if you, I'll put this link in the chat. They have a great list of recommended reading for all different age ranges on the RA for All blog. And the HWA co-sponsors this with librarians groups and tries to get horror books in the hands of young adult, middle grade, and even adult readers, because we figure there's probably some adults out there who are not reading enough horror fiction, if you can imagine
that. We have something for everyone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's terrific.
But definitely a good time for summer beach reads of the scary variety.
Yeah. You know, I remember there were times when you would be reading some sort of a pulp book or a horror book, and you would cover the book with paper so that people wouldn't see it. Now the covers are, they're fantastic. I want to show them off, so.
They are, yeah, I love them. I was never that clever. I was always just walking around with my Clive Barker paperback or whatever I had at the time.
Yeah, shouting to the winds. Yeah, that's terrific. That's terrific.
Exactly. So what else do we have coming up this summer? I think there's actually, now that the pandemic restrictions are loosening up a bit, it seems like we're getting back to some in-person events here and there, hesitantly. And
so we're sticking a toe in the pool. Yeah. Well, there's a fun event that is not specifically HWA sponsored, but one of our HWA New York members, Randy Dawn, is running rooftop readings at Ample Hills Creamery in Gowanus. That's on the second Tuesday of every month. And the cool thing is you buy admission and you get a big dish of ice cream while you listen to your horror. So that's pretty fun.
Yes, ice cream, outdoor, nice summer evening, and some great readings.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the next one coming up is Tuesday the 15th at 6:45. And I happen to know that there's somebody named Jim Chambers reading, along with Sam Miller and Sarah Kozloff. We'll get that link for you guys by the end, because I don't have that right at my fingertips. But you can search for Rooftop Readings on Facebook and find it that way.
Yes, please check it out. I'm excited to read. This will be the first in-person reading I've done probably in more than 2 years. So it's been a while, and a lot of the in-person readings we would have done in the past 18 months really, of course, were canceled or just
Hmm.
dropped, and this will be exciting. It'll be fun to actually see some people, talk about books, hear some stories, do some reading,
Hmm.
and eat some ice cream.
Hmm.
And because Randy is really awesome about organizing these things and very generous, she has also invited some of us to read in July, where we'll be doing July 20th, the rooftop reading. I'll be guest hosting that reading, and
Hmm.
it will feature Carol Geisender, Marc Abbott, and Kathleen Shiner, all reading from the new anthology Under Twin Suns, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign, which I edited and is being published by Hippocampus Press. So we
And
hope you
that's
can
just
find
coming
us
out the
there.
end of this month. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is perfect timing. Wow. It's like we planned it, Jim.
exactly, just in time.
That's terrific. And just one more thought, since it's June, HWA is celebrating Pride in June. There's a series of blog posts and interviews up at the horror.org site. And the most recent one is with Jewel Gomez, who's a novelist, essayist, poet, and a playwright. Her 8 books include the first Black lesbian vampire novel, which it's a pretty cool interview. So that's worth looking at horror.org to see more information.
Yes, and Jewel was a recent recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Horror Writers
That's right.
Association for all of her work. So definitely worth checking that out.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm excited to, I know we are not doing our own live readings yet, but I'm excited to have our readings tonight. What do you think? Should we jump in?
Absolutely. I think people are probably tired of hearing us talk already.
It's probably true. My cat's still listening, but she sleeps a lot. As long as she's not snoring, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and introduce our first reader, who's Marc L. Abbott. He's the author of the YA novel The Hookie Party and the children's book Etienne and the Stardust Express. His short stories Welcome to Brooklyn, Gabe, and A Marked Man are featured in the Bram Stoker nominated horror anthology A New York State of Fright and the Hell's Heart horror anthology. He's the co-author of Hell at the Way Station, the 2-time African American Literary Award-winning horror anthology with award-winning author Stephen Van Patten, and the sequel, Hell at Brooklyn T, with SVP and sword and sorcery maven Kirk Johnson. He's also a contributing writer of the book Cocktail Guide to the Galaxy. In film, he is the writer and director of the horror short Snap and Being Followed, a 2-time nominated Best Actor for his role in the science fiction film Impervia as well. His next featured role was in the film Identity Check from spring of 2020, I believe. He can tell us more about that. In storytelling, Marc is a 2015 Moth Story Slam and Grand Slam Storyteller winner, as well as the writer and performer of the the solo shows Love African American Style and Of Cats and Men, A Storyteller's Journey. He's the host of the monthly storytelling show, Man, You've Got to Hear This, in Bushwick, Brooklyn. He's one of the hosts for the podcast Beef, Wine, and Shenanigans and an active member of the HWA New York chapter. Find out more about him at whoismarclabbott.com.
Good evening. I will be reading an excerpt from my short story, The Gin and Tonic, from the Hell's Mall anthology. Akeem used the side streets to reach Ka's tent. His face wasn't well known at that end of the bazaar, but he didn't want to take any chances of running into someone he might know. Ka's tent was not directly at the end of the bazaar, but rather several feet away where the desert met the first stone of the street. It was a Bedouin tent, its sides and front closed so that to protect it from the desert sands. The black and gold gave it a regal look. A wind had begun to blow, sending sand into Akeem's face. He wrapped his lower part of his kahif around his face, then lowered his head slightly to avoid the elements striking him on the head. When he had reached the opening of the tent, he started to step in and was suddenly stopped by an older man with a dead right eye. I do not know you. His voice was deep and gruff. State your business. I am here to see Ka. Fahim sent me. Fahim. Yes, he and I was to present this to Ka, and he removed the vial and showed it to the man. I was to tell him nothing becomes more fact than the wish that is true. The man's left eye widened, and the sound of his words. He looked at the vial, took it from Hakim, and stared at it. For only the true wish from within can beckon the power of the jinn. He looked at Hakim. I am Ka, the one you seek. Assalamu alaikum. Please enter. Hakim returned the greeting, entered the tent, and removed his kahif. The floor was covered with the red and ivory rugs. 2 poles positioned at both ends of the tent held the roof up. Pillows adorned the back of the tent, while small tables and cushions were spread about. Atop the tables were scrolls. A lantern hung from the ceiling of the tent over a larger table where there were several jugs, clay cups, and vials. Ka walked to the table, placed the vial down, then walked to the far end of the tent and began to search through a pile of scrolls. When he had found the one he was looking for, he returned to the large table and offered Hakim a seat opposite him. Excuse me, did you say something about a jinn? Ka picked up a jug and poured the contents into a cup. Drink this. What is it? Ka stared at him. Do you question everything? I've offered you a libation and you insult me by questioning my hospitality? I meant no disrespect. Then drink the entire cup. Ka watched him drink the liquid. When he had finished it, he set the cup down. Ka took it and placed it in front of him. He unrolled the scroll, whispered something over it, then opened the vial and emptied the contents into the cup. This will be quick, as my time is limited. I will ask questions. You will answer directly. I am not interested in opinions or any such things. What I will state back to you is fact. Does not require a response. Is that clear? Yes. Excellent. We are off to a good start. Now then, you have been dishonored by sellers in the bazaar. I have. They have taken something from you or destroyed your belongings? Yes. Which then means you are a coward and weak. I am not interested in your opinion. This is fact. You can look at me and tell me, I can look at you and tell that you are. You are wrong. Hakim slammed the table with his fist. Ka smirked. Are these individuals still alive? Yes. Then you are a coward. Fact. We move on. Ka looked up into the cup and then over at the scroll. He had read the words from it with his lips moving, but no sound came out. A breeze blew when the lantern went out. They were in darkness for only a few seconds before a blue glow appeared out of the cup. Do you wish for these individuals to pay for their insults? Of course. No, you do not wish it. No, do you wish it or not? It is not obvious to me, for I am the one who is being dishonored. I do wish it. Ka looked in the cup at the glow and turned from the blue auburn, and it turned blue to auburn. The lantern light returned magically. Vengeance comes with a price. A bit of one's soul for each act that is wished and committed. Most don't realize this until it's too late, and it eats away at them. The guilt consumes them, and oftentimes they go mad or lose their all sense of worth. Like your father. Ka held up a finger before Hakim could respond. That is why he returned this to Fahim. He nodded. Yes, I know who you are, Hakim. And I will offer you the same out I offered him, because it is a just thing to do. What out? In this cup is Agaris, the jinn once owned by Korin Ren. He is very powerful and obedient. If you so desire, I can make you his master, but you must want this to be so. And there's only one way for this to happen. You must ingest him. Akeem leaned back. What? You mean I must drink the jinn? Precisely. Once you two are joined, then Agares will be able to perform his duties as your jinn. Any wish you make, Agares will perform it. Like Aladdin? No. Urgo was a different jinn, and once I explain how this works, you may want to decline. See, Agares has the power to grant wishes, and that's all that comes true, correct? Any wish I make, Akeem asked. Ka nodded. Then what is more there to discuss? I want the jinn. I'll take it. Akeem, you may want to hear no. If you wish to tell me afterwards, then that is fine. But I am not going to pass up this opportunity to own a jinn. Do I just drink him from this cup? He reached for the cup and Ka struck his hand. Do not touch that. You cannot ingest the jinn in its natural form. I must prepare the tonic that will aid in its infusion. But before I do, I will tell you one crucial thing, regardless to whether you want to hear it or not. The wishes do not come from spoken word, but from your thoughts. That's where the wishes originate. You would want to be careful what you wish for in your own head. Once Agares picks up on it, he will grant it. He sat back. Now, do you still want the jinn? Akeem nodded. Yes. Ka rose from his seat and walked to the table in the dark corner. He picked up several unseen items, then returned them to the table. He placed 4 small jars onto the table. Each had a different marking on them: a triangle, a single horizon line, a circle, and 5 small dots. He took an empty cup and added some water from the jug. Then he added 5 droplets from each of the jars into the water, shook the cup, then poured the contents of the cup in with the jinn. The glow faded. Ka offered the cup to him. Drink it all down. Akeem took it and drank all of the contents. He placed it down on the table, stared at Ka. Now what? Ka smiled. Sleep. Akeem seized up, his eyelids closed, and he fell into a deep sleep. Akeem awoke alone in Ka's tent. In front of him, the sky had turned an opposing red, exposing the desert and the night sky. The full moon provided the only light over the dunes beyond. The chill of the night air caused Akeem to tighten his robes. He stepped to the edge of the tent, looked up at the sky. As you wish, master, a voice said inside his head. What? Several inches in front of him, a spark flashed atop the sand. It slowly began to form a fire, and within seconds, a campfire burned bright in front of him. The night breeze pushed the warmth at him. May these burning embers provide you with the comfort you seek. How did Agares? At your service, Master Akeem, Agares said. It is good to feel you up and about. By Allah, you are with me now. I am. Akeem approached the fire. You read my thoughts. You knew I was cold and I needed warmth. You wished for a fire, and I provided it for you, yes? Akeem sat before the campfire and warmed his hands. He looked around for Ka and wondered where he went. Ka has left. He had business across the Dune Sea, Agares said. Do you know when he'll be back? I do not. Akeem closed his robe and shook from the chill that had crept up into his body. As you wish. A thicker robe formed around his body. May these robes provide you security. Thank you, Agares. Akeem tried to clear his mind for a moment. Do I need to speak with you in my head? No. You may speak aloud. I will hear you regardless. How many wishes do I get? Until it is decided that more will not benefit your life. I don't understand. What do you mean? Agares did not respond. Do you grant wishes when I sleep? You would not benefit from a wish that way. Akeem stood and the fire disappeared. He made his way through the gates of the bazaar and headed home. He walked slowly as though he were in a daze. The shops and the carts were all closed. Rats scurried in the dark, doing their best to avoid him. He tried his best not to think of anything, but as he got close to where his cart had been burned, he couldn't help but remember the events of that day. The cart was gone. He figured Fahim had taken care of it. He stopped and stared, his eyes refocused in the dark, and he could see bits of fabric laying under the light of a lantern. He felt his body grow warm from anger, and he picked up the fabric and stared back at it and started back for home. Tomorrow, he would see Fahim. Tonight, he needed rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marc. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So now this is your first appearance in the Hell's anthology series, or have you been in any of the other?
No, this is my second one. This is the other one I was in was had to do with love. Why is the name of the
Hell's Hearts?
Hell's Heart, yes. Okay. Thank you. I've been inside too long, if you notice. I haven't. I'm getting reacclimated to everything. Yes, Hell's Heart.
Yeah, I think we're all familiar with that cabin fever sensation. Yeah. And those books are edited, just as an aside, by April Gray, who was supposed to read with us tonight. But what was your inspiration for that story in particular?
Well, I've always had a fascinating with genies. And I mean, the title came to me before the actual story came. Just the play on words, a gin and tonic, when, something somebody would order. And I had been wondering how the decision of genies, when it came to wishes, how that all came about. And I had done some homework and everything and really couldn't find where the three wish rule came from. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to come up with an idea of how a jinn would effectively trick the person, his master, into making wishes so that it could become more powerful. So there really isn't a rule that I could find that said it could only be 3 wishes. So that's pretty much where I started with the idea of the jinn being inside someone and able to give them the wishes that they want by them thinking about them. So
that's really cool. Yeah, that's a great point. I have no idea where that 3-wish convention came from. I wonder if that's something from Hollywood, or if there's some basis in folklore for that exists. That's pretty cool. Well, you were getting some great comments on your reading. Your voice is a big hit. Nice work.
Thank you.
One quick comment. Ottone says you're leaving money on the table by not narrating audio.
That I really should get into doing that. I've actually thought about now doing audiobooks of my own work, working with somebody who can actually work with me to get me to do the kind of sound editing and make sure that everything comes out correctly. So
yeah, it's there's a lot to it. It's not as simple as sitting in front of a microphone and reading. So
yeah.
Along those lines, Teal has asked, do you write your work to be read aloud? Is that part of your process?
Much of the process that I've told people that there have been times when I'm writing that I actually do the dialogue out loud. Like you would think I was going crazy because I'm having literal discussions with myself, with the characters. So I kind of get an idea of how they sound in my head. But I'm very dialogue. I love dialogue. That's my thing. And I tend to write with conversations in mind. So it does sound a lot like it's meant to be read aloud. That's why it's so dialogue heavy, because I just love it. But I never consciously write it to be read out loud. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So in a sense, it is part of your process. but it's not necessarily the goal.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Carol Geisander. Did your film Identity Check come out already?
It actually did. It's actually in the festival circuits right now. And oddly enough, I actually won for Best Actor for the film. It was a Midwest festival, and I got the news like literally in the middle of the pandemic. The director sent me a quick text, and he was like, "Hey, you're not going to believe this," and then sent me the announcement. So it's been going well. Actually, it's been, I think, in over 43 different festivals, but it's actually on the festival circuit as we speak.
That's amazing. That's really fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I guess you do a lot of work as a filmmaker, as an actor, as a live performer and storyteller. How does that influence your written work, your prose?
Well, the written word has to come first. It's all about creating the story and the narrative. So I have to write much of this out. I mean, I can perform a lot of it off the top of my head, but I have to have a foundation to start on. So a lot of what I do is sit down, write out all of these stories, do a lot of bullet points, and every story has a beginning, middle, and end. Even when we're performing on stage, it has to have those three. So it helps me to practice, per se, because I don't have to get so in depth in my writing when I perform, because I already know what the story is going to be in my head. But it does help me with pacing and learning how to get story arcs put together and get from point A to P.
That's great. Yeah. So it everything comes back to having that solid story at the core.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, one more question, and I know you and I were chatting a bit about this on Facebook just recently, but if you had to recommend to our audience tonight one recently recovered lost George A. Romero film that they should go out and watch, which one would it be?
Oh, the
amusement park.
The amusement park. You commented on this. It was a gut punch.
Oh, that was your phrase.
Well, yeah, but you reiterated how that was very much. I have no words for this. I would say it is not a horror film. It is not a gory film. It is not a zombie film. It's none of those things. But what it touches on, the topic that it covers, is extremely painful, because it's something that we all must go through at some point we will go through at some point in our life. And Romero just took this thing, which should have been and could have been a little PSA, or like, I think you had said to me, like a after school special, and he turned a mirror on society, and he made us. It's very relevant. What's crazy about this film is that even though it was done in 1972, 1973, everything in that film plays well today. All of those topics about dealing with the elderly, it's extremely true, and that's what makes it terrifying on a completely different level.
So definitely worth a watch, and it's under an hour, so it won't.
It's 58 minutes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. One last very quick question that just popped up. This is from Nicholas Dyack. If he wants to get into Marc Abbott's writing, what is a good entry point to check you out, Marc? What would you recommend Nick start with?
I would suggest he starts with Hell at the Way Station. If he wants to get into my horror, start there, and then go through the selected short stories in Hell's Malls, Hell's Heart, and in the Empire State of Fright. If he's just really interested in getting his feet wet in my just general work, the Hooky Party is a great place to start.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
We enjoyed the reading. We'll have you back a little later to talk about what you have coming up next.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Our next reader this evening will be Robert P. Ottone. Robert is an author, teacher, and cigar enthusiast from East Islip, New York. He delights in the creepy. His collections, Her Infernal Name and Other Nightmares, and People, a horror anthology about love, lost life, and things that go bump in the night, are available now wherever books are sold. Robert can be found online at spookyhousepress.com or on Instagram and Twitter as @Robert Ottone. Robert, welcome.
Hello, everybody. This story is called For the Gods. DeAndre stood in his new bedroom, staring in the full-length mirror his sister Amara gifted him before heading off to college. At 12 years old, DeAndre already felt something of a crisis about his scrawny frame. His arms were thin, his legs too. He had hoped running track would somehow turn him into a muscle-bound speed demon. "You're just a late bloomer," his father told him time and time again when he questioned himself for joining the team. Not the fastest or the slowest, he considered middle of the pack an apt descriptor. "You'll see, bud. You'll grow into yourself soon enough." The added stress of moving to a smaller house in a new town worsened matters. His room was fine, and they had a pool, but in the end, he was without what few friends he had back in the Bronx, and couldn't imagine how he'd go about making new ones during the summer. The town itself, resting hollow, was nice and all. Quaint was the word that seemed to flicker through DeAndre's mind more than any other, probably because his last vocabulary test featured it and he misspelled it. But it wasn't the bustling metropolis atmosphere DeAndre was used to. He'd have to get used to quiet nights in the country, something his dad was all too excited to enjoy. Wearing his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bathing suit, DeAndre hoped a summer of swimming and working with his dad would help bulk him up. With school over, DeAndre was praying he'd be sent to summer camp with his friends from the old block, holding on to a distant hope that a summer together would help bridge the gap between his leaving the city and heading to the country. Maybe it would give him a chance to tell his friends how great his new house and pool were, so they'd make the 45-minute drive out to see him. "Hey, bud, dinner first, then pool time, okay?" he heard his dad say. "Look at you, you're getting ripped." DeAndre rolled his eyes. "Dad, come on." "Sorry, just busting chops." 5 minutes, button seat outside, Dad said, smiling. "You excited to see Amara?" DeAndre shrugged. "I guess." He looked around his room at the other items he inherited from his sister. Her record player, her New Kids on the Block, Madonna, MC Hammer, and other albums. Amara's Patrick Swayze and Brad Pitt posters secretly hung in DeAndre's closet, their intense looks greeting the boy each morning as he picked out what to wear. Various items remained scattered around, most still waiting to be set up. "You're too early for this moody teenager shit, buddy boy," Dad said, furrowing his brow. "Dad, you cursed! Swear jar!" "You're right, I did. Sometimes it's worth it, though," Dad said, pulling a quarter out of his pocket and running towards the hallway. As Dad turned, the closet door in DeAndre's room unlatched and opened ever so slightly with a creak. Dad walked over to it, looked at the latch, examined the hinges, and closed the closet. "Another project for us, eh, bud?" With that, Dad turned and walked down the hallway toward the kitchen. DeAndre heard the satisfying clink of the quarter slipping into the former spaghetti sauce jars sitting on the counter of their new kitchen, one of the last of the renovation projects Dad had planned. He hoped by the end of summer, the jar would be filled with enough quarters to buy the weight set he had his eyes on at Terry's Gym Supply in town. DeAndre and his dad ate cheeseburgers fresh off the grill in their backyard. Lightning bugs danced in the sky, sparking, then fading in their usual summer choreography. The sky burned an intense orange-purple. The pool sat nearby, stealing most of DeAndre's attention. The house needed updates and repairs, but the pool was perfect. It even had a heater. DeAndre, used to the square and rectangular pools in the city's various YMCAs and boys clubs, found a kidney-shaped pool weird, but he realized that a pool was a pool, and at the end of the day, he'd be spending as much of the summer as possible swimming and enjoying his own private slice of watery heaven. I saw that Batman Returns is coming out in a couple weeks, Dad said. You want to go? DeAndre thought he saw the first Batman movie. His mom, still around then, hid her eyes during the fight scenes, which made DeAndre laugh. This was before she decided to head out for a pack of cigarettes and never return. DeAndre wondered late at night whether she really did head out for cigarettes and something awful just happened to her, or if it was just an excuse to slip away. She said, that baseball movie's coming out too. I thought that looked pretty funny. Baseball movie? Major League? Didn't that come out already? No, I think this one's different, DeAndre said. It's like about women playing baseball. Dad laughed. That is funny. I'll look into it, kiddo. Without warning, a backpack sailed over the fence to the side of the house, and with it, DeAndre's sister, Amara, bounding after it. Athletic, tall, hair that curled in perfect impossibility, the girl was a blend of their mom's beauty and Dad's natural athleticism. DeAndre's self-worth always took a hit when she was around, even though she never intended it. Something smells good, Amara shouted, running over and hugging her little brother, giving him a big kiss on the cheek. He winced and tried to wipe his face. You better leave that kiss on there, buddy boy, otherwise I'll give you 10 more. DeAndre knew this wasn't an empty threat. He took another bite of his burger. How's my little girl? Dad asked, hugging her and lifting her off the ground. Didn't you get my grades? She asked, smiling. We got a letter, but we've been busy, and it's not addressed to me. So I didn't open it, Dad said. Dad, if it's from school, dive in. I don't give a shit, Amara said, grabbing a cheeseburger and pulling the bun off it. No carbs for me this summer, Dad. I need to cut weight for the fall. Swear jar, DeAndre shouted. Swear jar? Amara mumbled, her mouth full of burger. Dad nodded. Swear jar, and pointed toward the kitchen. He handed her a quarter and slipped as she slipped into the house. That night, Amara and DeAndre sat by the pool, draped in towels, both of them drying off. The night air radiated warmth, and they kept their feet submerged. How was the end of the school year, kiddo? DeAndre shrugged. Good, I guess. I got a C in woodshop. Woodshop? Making birdhouses and stuff? The boy nodded. I forgot to drill a hole for the birds in mine when I submitted it. Amara laughed. Yeah, that'll do it. What's college like? She smiled. Amazing. There's so many people. Everyone's different and interesting, and there's so much creativity. DeAndre smiled. That sounds cool. He paused and looked at the water. Soft light lit the entire pool from within, casting an almost radioactive glow to the area and bathing DeAndre and Amara in white blue light. Do you miss the city? Nah, she said. There's so many people at school. Even though we're in a small town, there's so much to do. The city is a different animal, but like at school, literally every night is something new. It's so much fun. She looked at him. Do you miss the city? He nodded. Yeah. She put her arm around him. I'm sorry, D. I promise you'll get used to life here. You'll make new friends. You'll miss your old ones, sure, but you're young. You made new friends, right? She nodded. A lot. Any boyfriends? He asked, teasing, stretching boy out to obnoxious lengths. She laughed. You're such a dork. That's not an answer, DeAndre said, laughing. If you must know, yes, a few boys have taken me out, she said. She looked at him out of the corner of her eye. Some girls, too. What? He asked, looking at her. Girls? What do you mean? You know, like I've gone out with guys and some girls, too, like on dates and stuff. DeAndre stared at his big sister. He was confused. He didn't know how to react. Huh. That's it? Just huh? Don't tell Dad, okay? Sure, yeah, okay. Okay, so you like girls then? Does that mean you're gay? First of all, how do you know what that means? Second of all, I don't know. That's kind of what college is all about, figuring your shit out. Swear jar, DeAndre said. Damn it. Dad was watching Roseanne, and it was the one where Dan, the dad on the show, was upset because his son wanted to dress up as a witch for Halloween, DeAndre explained. I asked why it was a big deal, and Dad told me that some people aren't accepting of people who are different. How did Dad sound when he told you that? Amara asked. A sudden splash in the water caught their attention. They looked into the pool and, seeing nothing, looked at each other. Maybe it was a rock? It's late. Who's out throwing rocks into random people's yards and pools? Amara asked. DeAndre slipped his goggles on, dipped into the water, and slowly treaded over to where the splash erupted. He slipped under the surface and looked around. The section of the pool where the splash happened, the 8-foot area, had been separated from the 3-foot area by a plastic safety rope connected to white and red flotation devices. Empty. DeAndre reemerged, took his goggles off, and looked at Amara standing nearby, wrapped in her towel. The wind picked up and she shivered. Let's go inside, okay? She helped DeAndre out of the pool and he placed his goggles down on the side near the ladder out of the water and wrapped himself in his towel. They walked through the sliding doors and into the living room where Dad was watching the news. That night, DeAndre lay asleep in bed. His Ninja Turtle nightlight cast yellow-green illumination around the base of the floor between the door to his room and the door to his closet. With a ferocity, the closet door swung open, slamming into the wall. DeAndre awoke with a start and looked around. His half-awake mind refocused, and he glanced toward the closet. He thought he caught a wisp of breeze float through the room, pulling toward the closet. The boy shivered in the dark, and he tucked himself further into his blankets. He watched as the closet door started closing slowly. Again, it slapped open. DeAndre rose and walked over to the closet, one hand on the door. He reached in slowly and grasped the chain hanging from the ceiling lamp. Clicking it on, he sighed at the piles of boxes still waiting to be unpacked, shelves stacked with various G.I. Joe figures, Amara's old Barbie and Ken dolls, a half-deflated basketball, pairs of sneakers, baseball caps, and a glove. His clothes hung on the left and right sides of the large space, which, if there weren't any boxes on the ground, would truly be the walk-in closet his dad promised him. Looking around inside, he couldn't find any vents or openings, yet still felt the wisp of cool air pulling him in. But he couldn't figure out where it could possibly be coming from. He leaned into the closet more, trying to feel the air flowing around him. He moved his clothes around on the left rod, just an empty wall, no space for a draft. Why would the air be flowing into the closet, he wondered. A thick musk suddenly filled the space, and DeAndre breathed deep. It was heavy, but not unpleasant, almost minty in fragrance. Turning to the clothes on the right, he heard a low hiss from within. Slowly, he began to part the clothes, expecting to find a snake, a Komodo dragon, or some other nocturnal hissing nightmare, and instead met a pair of glowing purple eyes, almond-shaped, piercing, and beautiful. DeAndre froze in place, his body betraying him, as every muscle tensed to burst from the closet. The light above flickered, and slowly a hand emerged from the darkness behind the clothes, thin, bone-white, fingernails sharpened to a point on each finger, more claws than anything else. DeAndre shivered and felt a loss of bladder control. The hand caressed his cheek and wiped away a tear that suddenly fell. As quickly as it emerged, the hand slipped back into the darkness. The eyes closed, and the aroma and wind vanished from the room. After his mind stopped firing in 1,000 different directions, his legs fired in only one, directly out of the room and into Amara's, where she helped him get cleaned up. He slept uncomfortably through the night, his mind racing at what was lurking in his closet. Thank you.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you very much. I love the glowing purple eyes. That's tremendous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so I know you picked this story. Thank you to honor Pride Month, and you got the rainbow Rocky Horror Lips too. That's very cool. Thank you much for that. That's very cool. I'm wondering, I know you're a teacher, and I have 2 kids who are now in their 20s. So I used to find that driving them around in the car, I would just button my lip, and if I didn't talk, I would hear a lot of chatter and learn a lot about kids at that point in time. So with you being a teacher, do you get to, I think that helps you keep your finger on the pulse of what kids are like these days. Does that help your writing? Not to call anybody specific out or anything. Yeah.
No, yeah, it definitely does. I love listening to my students talk about anything. I just find the way their minds work so interesting, and they're always so funny. And I'm always shocked at how mature a lot of teenagers actually are these days, almost to their detriment. Like it's, there's not a lot of sweetness. There's not a lot of enjoyment of your teenage years anymore. It seems.
Why
It's
do you think that is?
The internet.
Why is that?
Yeah, social media puts a lot of pressure on kids, I think, and they grow up really fast.
Mm-hmm. It used to be you saw just a little world that was around you, and that's like living on a river is one little world. But once somebody's moved like that too, did you move as a kid? Did you go through this kind of experience of a new, or did you grow up all in the same place?
No, I grew up all in the same place, but I had friends who moved away and stuff like that, and I've actually sort of reconnected with some of them now that we're older, which is pretty cool. So. I sort of get their experience from them, but no, I never moved away. I still live in the same town I grew up in, which is both pathetic and pretty cool. So
yeah. I was very different. I moved every 2 years, whether I wanted to or not. So that was kind of fun.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did you move every 2 years?
My dad got transferred, so
Okay.
that was just time to do. Yeah. So
what did your dad do?
He worked for the telephone company. So go figure. I don't know, but I was all over New York State. Yeah.
That's cool.
But you have speaking of changes and moving things, you have some interesting things coming up. You're getting married in 15 days, sir. I think you know that. I don't have to tell you this, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm very lucky. I found a great gal, and she's put up with me. So I'm very happy to be in her life, and I hope she feels she's lucky to be in mine. So.
Well, clearly she must, because you're getting married. Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. My son just got married, and they did a little quiet out thing outside for just family members. And exactly 1 year later, they're doing the big reception. So that's the way they're doing it. Yeah.
That's part of the reason we decided to get married on a Friday, because next year it'll be on a Saturday. And
yes.
Hopefully we can have a bigger gathering possibly. So that'll be lovely.
Yeah. Well, lots of people are saying congratulations, and also lots of great comments in the chat about your reading and all. So that's very cool. And our friend Katrina, by the way, says, I love that line about whether she really went to get cigarettes or was it an excuse to slip away. That was perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alp Beck wants to know what inspired this story.
I was listening to a lot of Italian disco music, and
Clearly.
I got asked to contribute to this collection, Unburied. I happen to have a copy here. Oh, it's reflecting. There it is.
Yes, with the tentacles on the front. I love that cover.
So yeah, I got asked to contribute to that, and I became really obsessed with the idea of a young boy discovering who he is at a young age and dealing with the difficulties that surround that. And I knew I wanted him to get to a certain point, and the Italian disco music certainly helped fuel that for me. So yeah, listen to music always fuels my writing.
Yeah.
So in this case, Italian disco.
Okay. And that ties into one of my favorite lines in this story, that college is for figuring yourself out, which is, that's a very cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we have another question from Nick, as well as comments. He wants to know, you have an affinity for Komodo dragons. Yes, you have a story about them in your book, plus a reference in this one.
I do. I love them. I think it's the closest thing we have to real dinosaurs, and I don't think I ever grew out of the phase of loving dinosaurs. So Komodo dragons are so scary to me.
Yes, if you look at them, how can they be real?
Right? I feel like they're all computer generated. Like, there's that joke that birds are not real. I think that it should be that Komodo dragons are not real. They're so terrifying. There's a lot that can be done with Komodo dragons. So I wanted to have like a little nod to my Komodo dragon story that's in my collection in this story. So I just threw that in there.
Okay. Now, I'm going to make a request whenever you get around to it. I want you to write a story where somebody goes miniature like Ant-Man and the Komodo dragon is like, yeah. So that'd be cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. No, that's very cool. Okay, but I've heard a bunch of your short stories, and I'm curious to know, short stories versus longer fiction. What do you like, and does it suit you to write short or long, or what do you think is your approach there?
I like both. I think I have more fun writing short stories than I do longer fiction. When I wrote I have a YA novel that's out on submission right now. But when I wrote that, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. That was fun to write because I was way into it, and it's got a horror element to that as well. and I'm working on my first full-length horror novel now that I'm actually going to be working on. I'm going to be workshopping it this summer with a guy. You might have heard of him. His name's Paul Tremblay.
Yeah, I might have heard of this guy.
He's
Yeah.
he's teaching a workshop. So I was like, well, this is a good opportunity to workshop this thing with a guy who knows a lot about horror. So
Oh, that's tremendous. Yeah, good. And a fellow teacher of with you. Yeah, he's also a teacher.
that's right. Yeah, math teacher with total opposites, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay.
Yeah,
And just Robert Masterson points out that Komodo dragon saliva is poisonous.
Yes. Yeah, it paralyzes you. It sends like a thing up your spinal fluid, and it paralyzes you. But you are awake when they start to eat you. It's like raptors.
Okay.
Yeah, like something is happening. You can't feel it, but it's
going to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay. I'm embarrassed to admit that I like that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your story and taking a few minutes to chat with us. And we'll have you come back at the end and talk about what else is coming up with you. So thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Michelle Renee Lane holds an MFA in writing popular fiction from Seton Hill University. She writes dark speculative fiction about identity politics and women of color battling their inner demons while fighting and or falling in love with monsters. Her work includes elements of fantasy, horror, romance, and erotica. Her short fiction appears in the anthologies Terror Politico, A Screaming World in Chaos, The Monstrous Feminine, Dark Tales of Dangerous Women, The Dystopian States of America, Graveyard Smash, Dead Awake, Midnight and Indigo, 22 speculative stories by Black women writers, and The One That Got Away, and has been featured on the Wicked Library podcast. Her Bram Stoker Award nominated debut novel Invisible Chains from 2019 is available from Haverhill House Publishing, and her nonfiction can be found at Medium, Speculative Chic, and in the soon-to-be-released Writers' Workshop of Horror 2, coming out in 2021. You can follow Michelle's blog, Girl Meets Monster, at michellerlane.com. Michelle?
So this evening, I'm going to be reading from one of my current works in progress. It is called A Marriage Made in Hell, and I'm going to read an excerpt from the beginning of the book. Egypt, February 13th, 1929. The overnight train from Luxor to Cairo was supposed to be a relaxing interlude between jobs. Azazel looked forward to a hot shower, a glass of bourbon, and a solid night's sleep after reading a chapter or two of Nella Larsen's Passing. While the fallen angel could never hope to fully understand the protagonist's struggles with race and class, he was wearing the skin suit of a ginger-haired Irishman and passing for human. While on Earth, Azazel enjoyed the art, music, and literature of the Harlem Renaissance and tried to read as many novels by Negro writers as he could. Reading helped to center him between assignments and learn more about different cultures around the world. His work took him to every corner of the globe as well as between dimensions, but soul collecting usually meant killing people before you had a chance to get to know them. Learning about other cultures through their art and literature helped to remind him that not all people were evil. As Lucifer's chief soul collector, Azazel had a long-standing record of being Employee of the Month when it came to hunting and collecting souls. Sometimes he had to come topside, like now, to track down a particularly dark soul, either one that had escaped hell or one that was still attached to its person. Azazel was on his way to Cairo to execute a warrant with an unusual set of circumstances. He reread the piece of parchment, slowly turning to ash in his fingers, just to make sure he hadn't misunderstood the assignment. Despite his reputation, Lucifer could be quite the practical joker, and Azazel often found himself at the mercy of his brother's dark sense of humor. Apparently, while on a dig in the desert, an Englishman unearthed something he shouldn't have, and now he was possessed by a demon-like entity from Egyptian mythology. While the job was a bit outside his wheelhouse, he was certain he could improvise and exorcise the entity from its human host. Fresh from his shower, he put on a silk smoking jacket and poured 3 fingers of bourbon into a crystal highball glass. Just as he was settling in for the evening, a woman's scream pierced the near silence that, until moments ago, was only interrupted by the hypnotic clacking of the train wheels on the tracks. Rarely one to panic, Azazel became very still and listened, waiting for another scream. A single scream was sometimes difficult to interpret. A single scream could be an overreaction to seeing something mildly frightening, like a rat or large spider where you least expect to see it. A single scream could be an overly exuberant display of excitement. A single scream could also mean the abrupt end to someone's life. If someone's life had just ended, there was little he could do about it. So he waited and listened. Seconds ticked by, and then his patience was rewarded. A cluster of screams filled the carriage outside his sleeping compartment. Azazel downed the bourbon in one swallow, pulled on the pants he discarded before his shower, and draped the smoking jacket over a chair before exiting his compartment to follow the sounds of chaos. Men were shouting in Egyptian, English, and then finally French so they could understand each other. Azazel cut snippets of the words being exchanged and pieced together that a woman's body had been discovered. A porter investigating the scream found her. Other travelers came to see what was happening, and then fear spread among them. Azazel approached the crowd cautiously. When he could go only as far as the circle of people surrounding the dead woman's door, he produced a slip of parchment with an Enochian sigil drawn on it and told the porter he was a government official. The sigil looked like the official passport of a diplomat to the porter, and he cleared a path for the fallen angel to enter the woman's compartment. He wasn't exactly sure what he would find inside, but what he didn't expect was the mummified corpse of a woman in modern clothing that he was certain he'd seen on the platform when he boarded the train. "Strange," he said to no one in particular. "Sir," the porter said. "Did anyone see what happened?" Azazel addressed all the passengers outside the compartment in Irish accented French. An Englishman wearing pince-nez and tweed jacket stepped forward. "We all heard the scream but didn't see what happened." "Good Lord!" The woman's appearance was shocking and extremely confusing. Azazel had never seen a body in that condition unless it had been recently unearthed in the Valley of the Kings. "There's nothing we can do for her now," Azazel said to the crowd in a commanding tone. "You should all go back to your compartments and lock your doors. I don't know what happened to this unfortunate woman, but while I investigate, I think it's best that everyone take precaution." Uncertain about what he should do next, the porter lingered outside the door. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Azazel smiled at the young Egyptian. "Yes, actually. Can you get me the passenger manifest and any documentation for unusual cargo?" "Right away, sir," the porter said, and scurried off down the corridor. "Damn," Azazel said, reluctantly accepting that his plans had been canceled by the woman's death. Well, more precisely, the mystery of her death. Part of him hoped that the woman's death was related to the case waiting for him in Cairo. It wasn't unheard of for a dark spirit, once summoned, to unleash plagues or other unfortunate side effects of being possessed. While he waited for the porter to return the manifest list, he fished a packet of cigarettes from his pocket. Happy to find there were 10 cigarettes left, he slipped one into his mouth and lit it after striking a red-tipped match along the metal frame of the overhead bunk. He inhaled the smoke deep into his lungs, held it there for a few heartbeats, and then exhaled through his nose. "Pity," he said, gazing down at the corpse. She was pretty. A portal opened behind him. The frigid blackness of the abyss made Azazel shiver and wish he had his jacket. Now, completely resigned to the idea that his evening of rest would be cut short, Azazel sighed as Lucifer stepped out of the darkness onto the train. I'd offer you a bourbon, but this isn't my compartment. No worries, I won't be staying long. There's been a change of plans. The warrant you were assigned to execute in Cairo has been handed off to someone else. Why exactly? Azazel's tone indicated his irritation at having his evening interrupted, but he was also a bit of a control freak and didn't like having his jobs handed off to the demons beneath him. You have a new assignment, and timing is critical, Lucifer said. What makes this assignment so important that you're hand-delivering it? It's an unusual set of circumstances. You're my best soul collector, so I wanted to put you on this assignment. There's a mummy on this train, and unless you kill the necromancer who's transporting it, he's going to perform some ancient spell to summon the Ka of the deceased back into his body, and thereby enact a curse that will raise an army of evil spirits. Azazel laughed. I'm sorry, did you say there's a necromancer planning to raise a mummy in order to enact an ancient curse? Lucifer sighed. I know it sounds like the plot of a penny dreadful, but it's legitimately going to happen if you don't kill the necromancer. Is the necromancer on the train with the mummy? Yes. Azazel stared down at the desiccated corpse. I don't suppose a mummy could do that, could it? Lucifer squatted, resting his hands on his thighs, and examined the body. Although she looks like the withered mummy of a 1,000-year-old Egyptian, it appears her essence has been drained within the past hour. Azazel made his way back to his own compartment with Lucifer at his heels and put the rest of his suit back on. Right, I guess I better get on with it then. There's something else I didn't mention about this assignment, Lucifer said. Azazel looked up from tying his shoes. Well, what is it? Lucifer hesitated before answering. Quit stalling. I thought this was time sensitive, Azazel said. Well, you have a partner on this assignment. Azazel narrowed his eyes. No. This isn't negotiable, I'm afraid. Azazel glared at Lucifer. I always work alone, and you know that. What aren't you telling me? This assignment didn't come from hell. Well, not exactly. This job is being outsourced from Duat. Excuse me? Who in Duat would have contacted you about a job? Before Lucifer could answer, another portal opened. Anubis stepped through.
Hey, Michelle, is that the end of your piece?
It is.
Oh, terrific. Sorry, you got me so hooked, and then you're bringing in Duat, and I was like, okay, now I want to know what's going to happen next. So I was kind of waiting. I'm like, where's more?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's really, really cool. I love the idea of kind of mixing mythologies and faith systems for fiction. Is that something that interests you, or is this sort of the first time you've been doing that?
This is my first time trying it, but I'm very interested in it. I tried to describe this piece as it's a novel that I'm working on. So and it's taking up a lot of my time because I think it's a series, and so there are pieces all over the place. But I tried to describe it as basically the myth of Persephone meets the story of O and Good Omens.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an eclectic mix. That sounds really cool. And now, Invisible Chains was, that read to me as if you had done a lot of research, historical research, to prepare for it. And now you're setting this, I think you said 1929 Egypt.
That's where it begins, yes.
Okay. Is historical fiction something you enjoy writing?
It is. Unfortunately, I really enjoy research, and so it takes up a lot more time than I'd like. But I get very interested in a subject, and I end up down a lot of different rabbit holes. And so while I'm writing, I'm learning all kinds of new things, and it makes it more interesting. And even if things don't end up on the page, it's in my mind, and hopefully it makes the page as authentic as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sympathize. It's very easy to go down a rabbit hole when you start researching. And I think that was actually suggested as a panel for a convention at one point, was how to do research without going down the rabbit hole too far. So, but that's really interesting. Now, Invisible Change was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award. And I think, as Carol mentioned in your bio, you graduated with an MFA from the Seton Hill Popular Writing Program.
Mhm.
I have heard such great things about that program, and I know a lot of people have gone through it. And I think, is Michael Arrington the head of that, or is he part of it?
He is a part of it. He is actually he teaches the horror courses. He's the main horror professor there. Tim Wagner taught for a while. He was also a mentor. Nicole Peeler, who wrote oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the name of the series, but she wrote a series of sort of paranormal romance about a Silky. And it's, so I don't know, everyone who's teaching in the program is also publishing. And so not only are they excellent writers who are great at teaching you how to write, but they also have a lot of experience in the publishing world. They have connections to agents. And overall, it's just a great community of people. And so you have access to other writers all the time. And it's an excellent experience. I would recommend it.
That's really cool. And do you find that, I guess, sort of the formal education structure is more beneficial than, say, sort of just being part of crit groups and, getting feedback?
Well, okay. So the structure is really good because, you're not only working with peers, because we do a lot of critiquing of each other's work.
Mm-hmm.
But you also do, you do it face to face in a circle, like a lot of other crit groups do. But you have someone there kind of guiding the conversation. So it's not all over the place, and it's kind of more focused. So you're getting the kind of feedback that allows you to actually make changes to your manuscript that are actually going to improve it. And you also have the benefit of taking courses within your particular genre of interest. So because it's a genre writing program, they offer all genres. I took the horror and sci-fi track, and all of the courses sort of like dovetail into a better understanding of that genre. Mm-hmm. And you spend time not only reading novels and watching films in the genre. I mean, that's like, I watched Psycho, and that was one of my homework assignments. So that was pretty cool. But, you also have to then keep a blog and write about it. And so you're really immersed in the process at every level of writing. So I think critique groups are great if you're getting the kind of feedback that you really need and your genre is represented within that group. But a lot of the times when I talk to horror writers, their initial experiences are not great because most of the people in their critique group either don't read horror or are definitely not writing it.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. People have gotten some raised eyebrows bringing horror fiction to a non-horror critique group. But it is wonderful that there's a program that takes writing genre fiction so seriously and really focuses on it. And then we have a couple of questions popping up in the chat. From Amy Greck, do you listen to music when you write, or is silence golden?
I guess it depends on what I'm writing. Sometimes, so I don't know, I consider the process sort of like a broad spectrum. So I might not be actually sitting down and putting words on a page. But if I'm driving around in my car and I'm listening to something on the radio, or I'm listening to something I'm listening to all the time, sometimes things will come to mind and like a story will start, and then I just grab my phone and I start dictating the ideas into my phone, and then I can translate it onto the page if I want to. But typically when I'm writing, it's either instrumental music or silent.
That's interesting. Yeah. Now, do you do a lot of writing by dictation, or is that really just for taking notes?
Just for taking notes.
And I think we have another question here from Carol Geisander. do you feel that horror lends itself well to comments about social issues?
Yeah, it definitely does. So I don't know. Apparently, I have a lot to say about social issues. I didn't realize that until I wrote a novel that was a slave narrative, and I had a lot to say about things that happened in the past, but they also translate very well to our current circumstances. And you know, as a woman of color, writing about women of color, you end up talking about things that happen in your personal life or people that you know that are close to you. Those experiences come out. And, you know, if you're not aware of the things that are happening in our country right now, I would be surprised by that. But a lot of the things that are happening currently are also influencing a lot of the media that people are enjoying right now. Just, you know, HBO's Watchmen was definitely influenced by current events, as well as past events. Also Lovecraft Country, while adapted from, you know, a very good novel, also delved more into the Black experience during the 50s and 60s. So yeah, absolutely. It definitely lends itself to social issues.
Are there any works of horror, any novels or stories that you feel do that particularly well, tackle difficult social issues?
Weirdly enough, Dracula. So, you know, it's set in the Victorian time period. It takes place in Victorian England mainly, and it's about a foreigner coming to English soil, written by an Irishman. And at the time, the concept of whiteness was still being explored in terms of who could or could not be considered white. And at that time period, Irishmen were kind of on the fence for most English people. And so for an Irishman to be writing a book about a foreign influence coming into to Britain and not only buying up land, getting access to women, and not only getting access to the women, but affecting them in a way, not only with like sexuality, but infecting their blood. It's a very, very political book.
Yeah, certainly for the times, it was controversial in that sense. It's touching on some difficult or sensitive subjects.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we're going to invite the rest of the readers back on for our wrap-up session. So let me bring everybody in. If in the audience, if you have any questions that we didn't get to, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll bring back Mark and Robert and Carol. All right. Well, thank you all for such fantastic readings and for sharing your stories with us tonight. We really enjoyed it and appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It's so much fun to hear such different stories come out of folks, you know, and putting them all together in one group to share is really cool. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So why don't we go around and hear what you have coming up next, or what you're working on, or where we can look for your work in the near future. Mark, do you want to start us off?
Well, let me see. Now that we're slowly coming out of the pandemic, I'm looking to get my storytelling show up and running again. So that may not happen until August. But man, you've got to hear this. I'm already putting some feelers out there to find a spot to do the open mic storytelling. And I'm not really working on any one particular book right now. I actually am working on a what I'd like to do is a serial, a series of it's about 3 kids and an elderly man in a small town which is being besieged by a vampire, and nobody believes them. So they have to now, and the story is called "Why Doesn't Anybody Believe Us?" So they have to. It's sort of the ideology of how nobody listens to children and old people are crazy. So the people in the middle are sort of like, yeah, whatever. So they have to try to work together to stop this thing in one night. It only takes place in one night. It's not over a period of time. But I want to kind of break it up into like a serial format. like what's the Stephen King thing? The Green Mile. The Green Mile. Yeah, I want to break it up like that. So I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that as a online thing or if that's going to be a book, a series of books. But that's currently what I'm working on.
Cool.
That's cool. So the people with no agency are the ones who can see this thing. That's frustrating and terrifying.
Well, it's not that they can't. The wake. What he's leaving in his wake, nobody believes that's what this is. They think it's everything but what these people are telling them. So it's that kind of that frustration.
Frustration.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds cool. Yeah.
And and if you're looking for any of my stuff, just go to my website, whoismarclabbott.com. And all of my work and my updates are there. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Terrific. Rob, how about you? What's coming up for you after the wedding?
After the wedding, I will be teaching this summer. So, but other than that, I have a bunch of lectures coming up about the Long Island serial killer for a bunch of different libraries here on the island. So I post about all that stuff on my social media. Yes, I see Alp is very funny. Yes, we are going on a honeymoon. We're sort of almost like a spooky honeymoon, actually. But so I'm excited about that. But so I have a bunch of lectures coming up this summer. And I have a couple stories that are out in collections right now. And I heard from one half of an editorial duo today. So I will be taking care of that submission. And so a lot of stuff coming out soon. And the anthology that I read from today is called Unburied, edited by Rebecca Rowland. And super proud of the story that's in there, and can't wait for people to read it.
That's great. And then I think, Rob, in August, we have coming up a presentation discussion about Long Island urban legends.
Yes, we do, sir. You and I tag teaming the Long Island urban legends scene, and super excited. I love that stuff so much.
Yeah.
Is that with Syosset Library again? Public Library?
It is with Jessica at the Syosset Library. She is amazing. And I'm actually doing an event with them as well. We're doing like a game night. So it's going to be me.
Oh.
I know, Carol, you know about this. But it's me, Curtis Lawson, Casey Griffant, and Becky Spratford is going to be there as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. That does sound cool. And Chris Ryan has a good question. He's asking for a couple of your social media contacts so he can follow you some more. So can you repeat that, please? What's the best place to find you on social media?
You can find me on the Gram. The kids call it the Gram these days. At
Gram?
Yeah, the Gram. And that's at Robert Ottone, and also on Twitter, same thing, at Robert Ottone. So. Okay.
Yeah, Jim got those up in the chat. Thank you, Jim. That's excellent.
Sure. Yep. I don't have anyone else's handy, or I would put those up too. So.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, what's coming for you this summer besides hot weather?
More hot weather. So I am doing some virtual events this summer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be participating in Your Right Mind, which is part of the Seton Hill experience.
I've heard great things about that program. I really have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. I have some stories coming out on the Wicked Library soon. I wrote a story about a girl who time travels while on acid, and and I'm working on this piece that I read tonight, A Marriage Made in Hell. And I know I say this all the time, but I really mean it this time. I'm seriously working on the sequel to Invisible Chains. And so I feel like I just keep saying that to make myself do it, but I actually am sitting down and working on it. So there are words on the page, I promise. So yeah.
Terrific. Did you plan it with that in mind, with the idea of a sequel, or is this a new follow-on idea?
So I initially, no, I thought it was going to be a standalone book, and I had a completely different ending. Actually, 3 different endings, and the way that it ended for the published version lend itself to more to come.
Cool. Excellent idea.
Exciting.
Yeah. So now, Jim, how about you? What do you have coming up? Like at the end of this month, sir?
Specifically at the end of this month, my new anthology, Under Twin Suns, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign, will be published by Hippocampus Press.
There's the cover.
It includes stories by John Langan, Lisa Morton, Tim Wagoner, Karen Warren, poems by Linda Addison, and Marc L. Abbott and Carol Geisander as well have stories in that book. So look for that if you like weird horror fiction. And beyond that, I have a short story collection coming out in the fall, which I'll be announcing formally in the near future, and some new Kolchak, The Night Stalker, coming soon, probably this summer.
Cool.
So, and Carol, how about you?
Well, I have a short story in this great in Under Twin Suns, which I'm very excited to see that come out, because you guys have the most astoundingly wonderful, creepy cover on it. It's just tremendous. I have a novel that's in the works that I've been putting through critique groups, which is just about done, and I can't say anything more about that because I don't know anything more about that yet. And I have a cryptid novella which will appear sometime next spring, and I'll be able to share more about that as we get closer. So cool.
Awesome. All right, and please do the social media stuff, the clicking and the liking. We hear that this helps keep YouTube afloat. If you like our broadcast and subscribe to our channel,
they let us come back to play again. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, one other thing that we want to do is say thank you to Lou Rera, who is the person who has taken over making these really cool videos for us, the intro and the intro for each person. You know, he does a great job, with video and sound and all that. I just love them. They're so spooky and wonderful. So thank you, Lou. We appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes, we're really thrilled that Lou can do all that and make us look so good.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, our next reading will be July 8th. And I think, Carol, we actually have the lineup confirmed for that.
Yeah, we have Rick Poldark, we have Lara Frater, and we have our guest, who is Stoker Award-winning author, poet, and editor, Sarah Tatlinger, coming up. And I hope one more person we will be able to confirm soon. So I'm looking forward to that, because it's fun chatting with all of you folks. And, I love coming in and getting to spend time listening to your stories and talking to people. So
that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that one.
It should be good. Yeah, it's exciting, and we're working on several months out. Now that StokerCon is over, and I have a lot more free time, or I should say, a lot less occupied time. I don't know if I have any more free time.
Yeah, what is it? What is this thing? Free time you mentioned? I don't understand. Yeah, and now
it's not free time exactly, but it's not.
Yes, yeah, alternative time.
We're putting together a really terrific forward lineup for the Galactic Terrors reading, so I'll use that as an opportunity to plug our newsletter again. Please feel free to sign up to get announcements and updates, and we'll be putting that out as soon as we have everybody finalized and scheduled. But we're very excited about it.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, many people get too many newsletters, but we are very careful. We do not spam you. We don't go crazy. We just send out one in the middle of the month to let you know it's coming up, and a reminder usually the day of. So yes. Thanks, everybody.
We try not to be too annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm sorry we missed April. We will make plans to get her back, and because she is a great reader. So I look forward to hearing her stuff again. And as we said earlier, Marc read from the Hell's Mall, her 7th anthology in the Hell's series. So that was, where his story was from. So she's edited that one, and it's really fun. Bunch of really cool stories in there.
Yes, a lot of good fiction in that series. So,
Mhm.
but Michelle, Mark, and Robert, thank you so much again for joining us. We're really happy that you could be on Galactic Terrors.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
with
you.
all of your future projects.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see everyone back here in July.
Yes, and in the meantime, let's go write all the words.
Exactly. All right. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.